Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good evening, this is Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Howie. On the show tonight, will women's spaces finally be protected in the UK? Maya Forstater joins us to discuss new EHRC guidelines and this Wednesday's Supreme Court ruling. Should lawyers ever be held accountable for their clients? With a law firm acting on behalf of terrorist group Hamas, barrister Philip Taylor is here to discuss potential culpability of activist lawyers. And Tom Slater from Spite is here discussing why Labour is seemingly so keen to avoid tackling the rape gangs. There's plenty more, including comedians asking bizarre questions from our audience. And we also have the news, which is coming up right now.
Very good evening from the newsroom. The top story tonight. Ukrainian officials now say 34 people, including, sadly, 2 children, have been killed in a devastating Russian missile attack on Sumy, with 117 still injured, among them 15 children. 2 ballistic missiles struck the city centre as people marked Palm Sunday, with harrowing footage showing bodies in the street, burning vehicles and bystanders pulling multiple victims from the rubble. A second missile packed with fragmentation elements is believed to have exploded mid-air for maximum destruction. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has called it an irreparable loss for the whole country, branding the attack as filthy scum and accusing the Russian president of deliberately ignoring ceasefire efforts. Well, tonight, rescue efforts are ongoing, with officials warning the death toll could still rise. The attack has now drawn swift international condemnation, France and the UK among them, both calling for urgent action, with Sumy's governor saying Russia had struck at the busiest time of day to cause maximum damage. Breaking tonight, counter-terror police have confirmed 2 prison officers are still in hospital with serious injuries following Saturday's attack at HMP Frankland. We understand a 3rd officer has now been discharged. In what's being described as a vicious and unprovoked assault, Hasham Abedi, the brother of the Manchester Arena bomber, doused the officers with boiling oil before stabbing them with homemade weapons. Abedi, serving a record-breaking 55-year minimum sentence for helping his brother kill 22 people, was being held in one of the prison's specialist separation centres, designed for the UK's most dangerous extremist inmates. Police searching for missing schoolgirl Kalia Koa have informed her family today after a body was discovered in the River Thames this morning. Emergency services were called to Maritime Quay in East London after a body was spotted in the water. Kalia vanished 2 weeks ago on the 31st of March after entering the water close to London City Airport. Local residents say the riverbank where she disappeared is slippery and moss-covered, with some children reportedly heard screaming for her help on the day she went missing. Formal identification is yet to take place, but specialist officers are supporting her loved ones. In Edinburgh, a major police investigation is underway after 3 teenagers were stabbed near Portobello Beach in a late-night attack. Emergency services raced to the scene just before 11 o'clock last night after reports of a violent disturbance. A 17-year-old boy and 2 18-year-old men were found with serious injuries. All 3 were rushed to the Royal Infirmary, where they remain in a stable condition. At this stage, there's no confirmation of any arrests. The number of people crossing the Channel in small boats has hit a record high for the first 4 months of the year. More than 8,000 migrants have arrived so far in 2025, already surpassing the totals for the same period in each of the last 3 years. That includes 656 people who made the journey just yesterday alone, the busiest day of the year so far. But the Home Office says it is ramping up enforcement and cracking down on people smuggling gangs, and called the crossings dangerous and a threat to the UK's border. President Donald Trump is in excellent cognitive and physical health, according to his White House doctor, following a 5-hour checkup. The 78-year-old scored a perfect 30 out of 30 on a cognitive test and showed robust heart, lung and neurological function. It's his first health update since being grazed by a bullet in last year's assassination attempt, with the memo confirming scarring on his right ear. His doctor credited Trump's active lifestyle and frequent golf victories for his tip-top health. And good news, Tooth Fairy, you can take the day off. In a world first, scientists at King's College London have successfully grown human teeth in a lab. The team managed to get cells talking to each other and forming the very beginnings of a tooth. It's something animals and sharks, elephants, well, they do that all the time. Now humans could be next. Scientists are now exploring two options: either grow the tooth in a lab and then implant it, no thank you, or place early stage cells in the mouth and let them grow there, rather not. It's still early days, but if it works, the breakthrough could one day mean we ditch the drill and say goodbye to fillings and implants altogether. That's the news on GB News. Plenty more still to come. Don't go anywhere.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome to Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Howie. This is a show where we cast our gaze across the spectrum of culture, current affairs and politics and inject a bit of common sense where things have become senseless. On the show tonight, Labour's rape gang now continues to rage as the government flip-flops over holding local inquiries. Tom Slater for Spiked joins me here to discuss why the Labour Party seems so hesitant to tackle the scandal head-on. ADF's Lewis McClatchy-Miller is here to discuss the case of Canadian activist Billboard Chris, his free speech clash with Australian authorities. After posting criticism online of a trans advocate, officials demanded the post be removed. Now he and X and ADF are pushing back. And are we seeing the end of British museums? The Tate Gallery has reportedly lost 2.2 million visitors in just 5 years, and fears are rising that others are heading the same way. Plus, the government is considering big changes to equality law aimed at protecting single-sex spaces. It could mean stricter rules for trans access and clearer definitions of sex and gender. Joining me to discuss this shortly is the CEO of Sex Matters, Maya Forstater. And, of course, myself and my fantastic panel will be answering questions from our wonderful studio audience. My comedian guests this evening are Lewis Schaefer and Adam Kumas. Welcome. I love your haircut, Lewis.
I did it myself. I cut my own hair.
You did a fantastic job.
So now they're going to think it's not that good. Adam thought I did a really good job, and then I told him I cut my own hair, and he says he didn't like it.
I told you not to tell me that. Yeah,
I think you did a good job. And you've recently also, like President Trump, you took a cognitive test. And you got the lowest mark ever.
Well, I think coming on this show, is a failure of a cognitive test for me. Sorry. Then the meanness comes out.
That's only because you're not getting paid.
And Adam, what do you? How are you, Adam, with your fine set of hair there?
Oh, good. Yeah, I pay regular people to cut my hair, so it's great. Yeah.
Well, yes, me too. So let's get some questions from our audience. Our first question's from Chris.
Hi, Josh. Are chocolate eggs a Christian additional?
Yes. So thanks, Chris.
Sorry.
No, it's all good. You've eaten too many chocolate eggs. That's the problem. So are chocolate eggs a Christian tradition? Yeah, this is because English Heritage has been criticised for omitting Christianity from its explanation of Easter's origins in materials for a children's Easter egg event at its site, instead attributing the holiday to a pagan spring festival honouring the goddess Ayostre. I think I've pronounced that correct. So, Adam, you familiar with the story?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's because we were talked briefly about it yesterday on Headliners. But yeah, it's a fascinating story. I think if I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt, it seems like they're trying to say, look, it originally has its roots in pagan festivals and traditions, but I think it seems to be quite rightly upset a few people that it seems sort of omitted the word Christianity or Christians from that.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people are feeling maybe across the country, maybe there's not a huge celebration of Christianity, but there might be other celebrations of other faiths, and I think that's probably quite right for people if they're sort of seeing that, thinking that's not quite right.
Well, this is it. So, what do you think, Lewis? Is this the erasure of Christianity from Easter?
Well, I don't think it's the erasure. I don't think. I think it's not. What did the word they use? This is not interesting. This is so boring. They're absolutely the most boring people in the world, anybody who says something like this. The fact is, every single religion comes from some earlier place, earlier time. I mean, are Easter eggs Christian? They're Christian now. So you're stopping people from eating. You shouldn't eat anything made of sugar.
I knew it was going to go there.
Yeah, but that's number one. That's the point. The second thing they're saying, you shouldn't believe in anything that's even Christian. So we're saying it's not even Christian. I think it's evil, and I think it's really boring of them to do this.
But that's just the sugar.
Evil
isn't it?
and boring, yes, the two things together.
Yeah.
I mean, as you say, and as Lewis actually correctly says, every ritual that we know comes from earlier ritual, or they're adapted. So Christianity was brought to the UK, and there were pagan festivals before, and this is what cultures do. They mish and mash, and they come up with something new.
Yeah.
But I guess the problem is, and this is why people might be feeling a bit upset about it, is that the fact that they didn't mention Christianity in this case is somewhat ridiculous.
Well, the public aren't stupid. I think we've seen in the past, I think, where we've seen like Easter eggs on the shelves, but we haven't seen the word Easter, and they've been sort of renamed as just like holiday eggs and things like that. And it's like if people aren't seeing Easter or things that they've been brought up to celebrate around are not being represented, we're quite right to be upset.
Yeah. And if anybody's interested, Easter egg hunts actually come from the 16th century Germany. Martin Luther would basically get women and children to go out there and hunt eggs in the ground. It was meant to represent rebirth and whatnot. And it's all really based on Passover anyway. So let's look at this. We have a statement here. English Heritage says, we cover a broad and deep range of themes connected to the stories of our sites. Our Easter egg adventure quest is a trial for children which references a range of fun facts about seasonal traditions, cultures and religions, including Christianity. Our next question's from Joe.
Good evening.
Hello.
My question is, should ethnic minority teachers actually get paid more?
Yeah, it's an incredible story, isn't it? Yes. So, should ethnic minority teachers be paid more? This is in Wales. Ethnic minority students in Wales are being offered an extra £5,000 to become teachers under an anti-racist initiative. It follows calls by Climate Cymru, I hope I'm pronouncing that correct, BAME, to Cymru, they're going to hate me even more, to ban dogs to make outdoors anti-racist, which is a separate story. Joe, what do you think about this? Paying ethnic minorities more for the same job? That seems pretty racist to me.
It just seems pointless.
Yeah.
You know, a teacher teaches.
And hopefully you would get the best teachers. This is
the best teachers.
Well, this is the Welsh Government, Adam, wanting to push forward these anti-racist policies that, of course, ironically then end up being racist towards, in this case,
Does Wales have a huge racism problem? I never thought that. I mean, and where do we start? Like, we've got teachers, 5,000, paying an extra 5,000. If I go on a stack shelves at Tesco, do I get an extra 5k? Because if that's the case, I'm going to be going on a, Find My Heritage website, and I'm going to be saying I'm Aborigine. Like, get my money when I can. And I advise all of you to do the same.
I mean, the problem is, of course, that Wales is very low. I think it's the last country when it comes to testing students, teenagers, for things like maths and science. They're doing the least well in the UK. Yeah. Really, you think the Welsh Government would be just focused on getting decent teachers?
Well, first of all, Wales has a tremendous racism problem. 100% of the population is racist. They hate English people. And I've been there. They hate English people. That's racism. And the fact is that they don't have enough. I think what they're thinking is we don't have enough black and whatever that means, black and Middle Eastern and whatever it means. And they don't have enough of people of colour. I think it's only 5 or 6% of colour. You feel bad for the Welsh because the Welsh people were forced to live in Wales when the Anglo-Saxons and the Picts took over. That's a fact. Basically, most Welsh people live within like 50 miles of the English border. They're basically the Palestinians of the United Kingdom.
This is interesting. I'm going to refer to Douglas Murray's new book about this.
Why would those people want to degrade their Welshness any more than
there's a contradiction in this story, though, because in the same story they also want to get up to 1 million people speaking Welsh. So they want to be anti-racist, but then everyone to speak Welsh. So it's like pick a lane, pick one or the other.
Yes, he's totally right. Why would somebody come from India or Africa to go to Wales to learn how to speak Welsh? It's ridiculous. People, you know what people need? They need to scream, "You're boring." You want more Welsh. You want more Welsh. You want Welsh math teachers who are black. She's totally right. You just want somebody. You don't even want teachers because the education system is so corrupt.
You finished? Our next question is from Trevor.
Good evening, Josh. Why are more women being strip searched?
Yes, we're talking about in public, not private. Why are more women being strip searched? This is Home Office data shows a 7% increase in searches of women up to March 2024, compared to a 4% drop for those of men. So they haven't, in my understanding of the story that I read, they didn't really get into why this is happening. Do you think it makes an impact? Do you think it's important? Do you think strip searches are necessary even?
Well, I just think that, to be honest with you, again, we were talking about teachers. Strip search is a strip search. I don't even think it necessarily is something that needs to be classified. You strip search somebody, wherever. If you go to an airport, for example, if somebody needs to be strip searched, they do. I don't see why. That's a bit like saying, okay, how many women are strip searched? How many men? How many Hispanic men, for example, or whatever.
Yeah. OK, well, as someone who looks Hispanic...
Thank you.
But Adam, what do you think about this?
First of all, I pride myself on looking like I could be from any race.
Yes.
Mostly.
It's a gift.
Yes.
Certainly if you want to be a teacher in Wales.
Oh, absolutely. I'm getting my paycheck.
Do you think that... is there any reason for this? Do you think that this is because the police are maybe trying not to... It seems like this correlates somewhat with the...
Yeah, so in the story, there's an interesting... It seems that they're sort of suggesting maybe the reason why there's a bit of an uprise is because we're seeing increasingly more people shoplifting, and that seems to be, out of most crimes, we know most crimes are committed by men, but shoplifting seems to be a little bit more female-orientated, and that seems to be one of the reasons potentially why. But when I first saw this story, I think, look, things are going to go up and things are going to go down. Like, in terms of stats, in a year from now, it might be women are being less strip searched. Like, everything doesn't have to be a big news story. It doesn't have to be some alternative agenda, as you said, as the gentleman on the front row says. Maybe it's just a correlation, and maybe there isn't an agenda. Maybe it's just something that's happened. Fair enough.
Well, Lewis, you're a big fan of strip searches.
It's true. It's a blessing for me when they ask, but women don't like it, from what I can tell. But I mean, the fact that it's only up by 7% for women, and it's still way lower than for men, it just shows women are way too sensitive. About is that wrong to say? Is that wrong?
No, I mean, what's interesting is we've sort of divided here. Yeah. We've got the all-male section, and they seem to get more offended on women's behalf. Maybe.
Well, I don't think that they do. They're gay. They don't care. They don't care. Is that the troubling thing from that statistic? First of all, how many people are strip searched? Why do you need to strip search somebody? It's like you could pat them down to see if they have a knife or a gun. You don't need to take off every item of clothing and look up their kazoopi. You don't need to do that.
There's probably provisions in place, isn't there? Like, if you are being strip searched as a woman, you probably have the right to ask for it to be a woman who does the strip search. So I guess it's the same.
Well, no, actually, you don't have the right anymore because the police have recommended that
even a man.
Well, that's a different story then.
Well, it is a different story, and I'm sure we're going to come to it at some point. But our final question for the moment is from Chris.
So when will Apu from The Simpsons ever talk again?
Yeah, Apu from The Simpsons. So the Simpsons character, he's not spoken for nearly a decade after being criticised for promoting racial stereotypes. This is compounded by the character being voiced by Hank Azaria, who is a white man. So, Chris, before the show, you were entertaining us all with your Apu impression, if you wouldn't mind.
So, I did not. From what I gather, though, the actor who did Apu's voice for about 30 years. He is still doing the other voices on the show. And from what I gather, the reason he hasn't spoken for so long is because sometimes when they change their voices on The Simpsons, sometimes they get away with it, sometimes they don't. And characters have been killed off, even on The Simpsons, because they've changed the voice and the audience don't like it. From what I gather, they're searching for a new voice who's Asian, who is close enough to the old voice to bring Apu back.
Well, that's interesting that it's taken 8 years and they haven't found someone who can do this. Apu's a much-loved character, feature character, really, on The Simpsons. So just to sort of cut him out feels worse than why they did it in the first place.
Well, I think that this is an interesting one because I think that I do understand from some people saying, oh, it was seen as an insult or he was a stereotype. But if you think about The Simpsons, every character on The Simpsons is a stereotype. You've got the crazy, you've got Willie, the Scottish man, you've got the policeman who's like fat and always eating donuts, you've got the crazy Italian guy, Mo, who's like a Barney who's a drunk. Like, everyone on The Simpsons is a hyperbolic.
Lewis.
Yeah, they're all, everyone's a character. And I think maybe if they haven't found someone, I mean, does anyone still watch The Simpsons?
No,
one person.
Well,
and that's
they're watching Free Speech Nation. Lewis, what about this? Also, of course, Bart Simpson's played by a woman. That's a bit sort of...
Is that true?
Yeah. It is, yeah.
I don't know. I don't care. Somebody should say, boring, shut up, we're having a white guy play Apu. If you got problems with it, you start your own little... What was the last Indian program we've seen on TV? They're not good, I guess. and so somebody needs... You know what? This is what this show is about, Josh. It's about, like, the boring things that people do, that people put up with. It's just, we got to be stronger.
Wonderful. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to quote that, and we're going to use that in our advertisements for the show.
Because that's what it is. That's what every one of these stories is. Of course it's stupid. And you people you're too afraid to say it's stupid. If we want to have a white guy...
the reason why we're covering it is because they're stupid.
The dude, Josh, who's playing Apu, voicing Apu, he's in the office there. He's in the studio. What are they going to call some Indian guy up? How much is that going to cost? It's going to cost a fortune, but they got the guy who's playing a million other parts. Can you just say these 3 lines?
Well, Lewis, I think it's very offensive that you've been pretending to be American for years. So, next on Free Speech Nation, Labour's row over grooming gangs continues to rage as the government flip-flops over holding local inquiries. Tom Stater joins me to discuss why the Labour Party seems so hesitant to tackle the scandal head on. See you in a couple of minutes.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new Royal Newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date. Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. Why is Labour so hesitant to confront the rape gang scandal head on? They promised 5 local inquiries, but this week they flip-flopped into confirming how many there will be. After decades of silence, is this really about justice or about protecting reputations? Some have suggested the reason for this is concern over what a real investigation might uncover was going on for so many years in predominantly Labour-run areas. And why does it seem yet again as though the victims of mass sexual abuse come second when it comes to politics? I'm joined now by the editor of Spite Online, Tom Slater. Welcome, Tom. Thank you. It was kind of shocking this week when Jess Phillips announced just before Parliament went into recess and made this announcement that actually this pitiful £5 million that was kind of a consolation prize from January, they weren't even going to do that.
No, absolutely. I think the way in which it was announced tells you everything you need to know about Labour and the political class in general, their relationship with the survivors of this particular tragedy, how often they're just heaping one betrayal on another. This was snuck out, as you say, right before recess. These 5 localised inquiries were already seen as a bit of paltry, bit of an insulting measure to many victims who've been calling for a full national inquiry. So to then downgrade that even further, only Oldham is going to get its local inquiry. The rest will have what were deemed more flexible measures, i.e. even more toothless than what they were already going to have. And it really did feel like they were just trying to bury the news. And it came even just a few weeks after Tom Crowther, Casey, who is going to lead the Oldham inquiry and was also originally tapped to basically help the government set up these local inquiries when there were going to be more than one. He had said he hadn't heard anything from the government. It got to the point where he actually approached the Home Office and said, can I be of any assistance? So given the fact that all of those announcements were only made in January, the fact that we're seeing a climb down just a few months later, I think has gone down, obviously and quite understandably, as yet another betrayal in 2 decades worth of them, as it is at this point.
I mean, do you think that the government are going to learn? I mean, to be fair, there was no real inquiry under the Tories. I mean, they would sort of argue that there was, but it was a much wider scope. There hasn't been a specific inquiry on this particular this travesty. And it feels like, obviously, it all kicked off after Elon Musk brought it to attention after Charlie Peter's here. But why are they not grasping how angry people are and how that there is this need, particularly from, of course, the victims, to have some kind of closure, exposure and closure?
No, absolutely, because there was always going to be an argument about whether or not a national inquiry would have been the right solution. You know, there is a way in which inquiries have just become a way for governments to almost pass the buck. They take a very long time. They cost an awful lot of money. By the time some of the politicians who might have been implicated in some of these scandals, by the time the report actually comes through, they're often out of politics somewhere else. So there was an argument to say, is this the right way forward? But given that we're in an era, particularly where Labour, before they got into power, were calling for an inquiry every time one of the Tories passed wind, I mean, it suggested that they took this horrendous scandal that had been going on for many decades, completely ignored, covered up in many places for the reasons we'll probably get into, to suggest that didn't deserve that kind of status, which was obviously taken as a huge blow. Even if they came up with something that sounded like a more powerful alternative, one of the things the last Tory government actually did do in this area, which is of some genuine use, is they set up this task force, which just recently made its 1,000th arrest on the grooming gangs scandal. you think leaning into that, giving that more resources, giving more resources to another task force which could look at the culpability of local councillors, local police, and to make sure that heads actually roll, because they never really have in relation to this. Even if they came up with a kind of counter-offer, a counter-measure that seemed to signal we take this seriously and we're going to deliver justice, that would have been one thing, but they did neither. And I think that's why people are feeling particularly betrayed this time around.
Yeah, and then their actions this week suggest that they just want it to go away.
Yeah.
They just desperately want it to go away as quickly as possible. Is it possible that it would go away? Do you think that this is that they're actually strategically for them, they are making the right call? I mean, I find it abhorrent, but if it comes down to just politics, do you think that people will just stop caring?
I think the genie is out of the bottle on this one. I mean, people have known a lot about this scandal since at least 2011, when you start to see the Times exposés on what was going on in Rotherham and Rochdale. People are very aware of this. Unfortunately, it took Elon Musk to force the politicians to respond, but there's been widespread knowledge of what has been going on, widespread concern amongst the public. I think the profile of this issue, as it's been raised by this channel and Charlie Peters' work, you can't unwind that. And if Labour thinks that they can, then they're going to be in for a rude awakening. And the question is, why are they doing all of this? I mean, there's one sense in which they've got it into their heads that to take this issue too seriously is to feed some kind of far-right culture war. We all remember when this issue raised its head again in January and Keir Starmer accused people calling for a national inquiry on the Tory side as jumping on a far-right bandwagon. There is still a bit of that going on because it's far-right to care about child rape now, apparently. But then there's also this kind of sense of it's this uncomfortable truth. And I'm not a mind reader, but the fact that many of these scandals took place in areas which had Labour-run councils, which had Labour MPs, in a grim political calculation where you can understand why that might make them more hesitant. But surely all the more reason to just look into this as clear-cut as possible and to try and just draw the poison from this issue. Surely that would be better not just for the country but for the Labour Party if it wants to be taken seriously in the working-class constituencies, which are increasingly turning away with them, not just turning away from them, not just because of this issue, but this is probably the most grotesque one of those issues on which Labour has betrayed the people it used to represent.
And then having Jess Phillips out there, and there's this clip of her sort of almost being scornful when the Tory MP raises this and raises the ethnicity of the perpetrators, but she speaks so eloquently and forcefully on other victims, but then when it comes to the victims here, suddenly becomes timid.
Exactly, and I think that is not just an over-reading of that particular exchange in Parliament. There are other points in Jess Phillips's career where her previous firm convictions, where it comes to violence against women and girls, seems to be moderated a little bit. I mean, there was the Cologne sex attacks on New Year's Eve a few years ago, and she appeared on Question Time shortly afterwards, and she said something which I don't think it's unfair to say seemed to downplay them. She said that she likened it to the sort of heckling that would go on Birmingham Broad Street of a Saturday night. So you can't help but feel, and it's not just Jess Phillips, and it's not as if I think these people are bad people necessarily. It's that I think they're captured by an ideology which sorts crises and scandals like this on the kind of hierarchy of victimhood that we talk so often about. And because of the fact that in these cases, the ones that were covered up, it seems they were covered up because there was official nervousness about talking about the perpetrators, because they tended to be Pakistani Muslim, and the victims tended to be ignored because they were often very poor white girls who were dismissed by the police and the authorities as essentially child prostitutes. That because of all of this, there's a particular nervousness about talking about it, but you just can't help but get over it. Yeah. There is lives that have been ruined by this and that has been enabled by a state which looked the other way in so many different cases.
Jess Phillips is not here to defend herself, and I guess the reason why I bring up her name is because I've been a fan of her in the past. I've been a fan of what she has pushed in terms of fighting against violence towards women. But it just feels like there's an hypocrisy when it comes to this issue, and I think it feels to me like it almost hurts the other things that she advocates for. And one final point is, what do you think about the government response since? Because it feels like they kind of got busted and then they came out afterwards like, no, we weren't doing that at all. We weren't trying to hide it away. We're actually doing loads of amazing stuff, and that you're being ridiculous.
No, I just don't think anyone's going to buy any of that now. We see what has happened. We see the fact that an already pretty meagre set of measures announced in January have been rolled back in quite a meaningful fashion. And I just wish that they could recognise that actually taking this issue seriously would probably stand them in a lot better stead amongst the communities that they're that were hit by this, certainly. But also, there's this implication, which you see come up in a lot of the commentary and kind of implied by some of Labour's discussion of it as well, which is to take the issue of Pakistani grooming gangs too seriously would somehow to alienate Pakistani Muslim voters in the inner cities, as if they're going to be personally offended that paedophiles are being locked up. What a horrendous conflation to make, what a horrendous smear to make on that section of society. So it's one of those things where I don't know, I understand why they're doing it, but I think it's incredibly ill thought through on the level of just morality, politics, but also supposedly meeting the goals that they want to, which is a genuinely harmonious society in which we can recognise where issues like this come up, deal with them precisely so that they don't fester and grow and cause more problems.
Yeah, well, let's see if Labour are going to learn this. And thank you so much, Tom Slater, editor of Spiked. A Labour Party spokesman said the claims in this article are completely unfounded. The Labour government is providing major investment to tackle child sexual exploitation and abuse and to pursue truth and justice for victims of those most heinous crimes. We are funding new police investigations to reopen historic cases, and Baroness Casey is currently reviewing the nature, scale and characteristics of grooming gangs offending across the country, including the question ethnicity, and we won't hesitate to go further. Next on Free Speech Nation, ADF's Louise McClatchy Miller joins me to discuss the case of Canadian activist Bill Boyd Chris' free speech clash with Australia. After posing criticism of a trans advocate, officials demanded the post be removed. Now he and X and the ADF are pushing back. You do not want to miss it. See you in a second.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there, it's an east-west split across the Mediterranean as we go through the next couple of days. Fairly settled for much of Turkey and Greece. Temperatures here climbing into the low 20s in places, but for much of Italy and southern France, actually some very unsettled weather developing. Could see some flash flooding in places. Also fairly unsettled for Spain and Portugal, although down towards the Canaries we should see some decent sunshine. For Tenerife, Wednesday, Thursday, we could see highs reaching 23 degrees.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
It's all kicking off in the world of bowling because an historic bowls club could be forced to close after a staggering 2,000% parking fee hike. Members, many of them of course elderly, say they can't afford the jump from 40 quid to an astonishing £840. Now, for some, the club is their social lifeline, but the council insists that the change is necessary to ease financial pressures. Well, of course they would. Well, joining me now to discuss this is the club captain of Eastbourne Parade Bowls Club, Pete Hensman. Pete, welcome to the show. This is an astonishing hike in the car parking costs. It must have simply bowled you all over.
Yeah, to use a phrase, you're quite right. We sort of staggered and worried because of the possibility of closing us.
What's the reaction been within the club to what seems like an eye-watering increase?
Well, as you said, several of our members are saying, we just can't join, we can't afford it. The bus service around here is not particularly good, and they can't carry their bowls or get to the club.
And you've been around since 1897. You've got 70 members, got some wonderful pictures there on screens of people just getting together. Absolutely wonderful thing to do. Healthy physically, healthy mentally, and of course a lot of people lose more friends as they get on. Have the council been remotely forthcoming in seeing the light?
I think they've got a bit of a panic on. We got a message inviting us to join the chairman of the council tomorrow to discuss the matter. I hope we're going to get a compromise.
GB News.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Whoa, that's my favourite. Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. Canadian children's safety campaigner Chris Elston, known as Billboard Chris, is at the centre of a major free speech battle in Australia. Last year, he posted a Daily Mail article on X exposing trans activist and WHO expert Teddy Cook for promoting bondage, bestiality and taxpayer-funded sex change operations. Elston added commentary criticising the appointment. Cook complained, and Australia's e-safety commissioner demanded the post be removed. Now, both X and Elston, backed by ADF International, are fighting back, challenging the government's right to censor political speech online. I'm joined by Communications Officer at ADF International, Lois McClatchy-Miller. Welcome. So, Lois, you actually went out there, right?
Yes, yeah, just fresh back from Australia. And my goodness, it was really the case that demonstrates global censorship right now. You know, we have this Canadian guy who's tweeting about children's protection from gender ideology. He believes passionately that no child has ever been born in the wrong body. He's always contributing to this political debate. And then you have, you know, an Australian e-safety commissioner reaching out over the border to this Canadian guy on an American platform and saying, no, your free speech has to be cancelled. You can't say that. It's quite a remarkable thing to have happened and to witness.
So reading some of the transcript, we saw that, by the way, similar incidents in the UK during various trials where experts were brought forth and then just said the most ridiculous things. I believe there was a professor who says that you can't using pronouns or the wrong pronouns is actually anti-science.
Yes, indeed. Well, this was a big part of the case because in Chris's criticism of Teddy Cook, he referred to her by her biologically accurate pronoun. Teddy Cook is a woman who refers to herself as a male, but her biologically accurate pronoun is she. And so when Chris used this language, which has been common to us for thousands of years, that was something that was deemed to be offensive. And a lot of the case was figuring out, does it meet that threshold? Is it so offensive that it can be considered to be intentionally causing serious harm to another individual? And we say, of course not. It's a tweet, it's a political commentary. You cannot censor someone just for speaking the truth about biology.
Well, this is it. So, yes, from what I understand, it sort of all collates around this serious harm definition. But the fact that you've got someone saying that using the wrong pronouns is somehow anti-science, which is the opposite in reality, that seems crazy to me. Also, you had a psychiatrist who declared that serious harm would mean months of trauma, yet the evidence showed that Teddy actually a couple of days later was like, oh no, I'm living my best life.
Living my best life, exactly. So yeah, it's quite clear from Teddy's posts online that certainly within 9 days after the post, she was perfectly happy, posting with her dog and living her best life, as she says. So it's very difficult to believe that a tweet made by a Canadian guy criticising a public figure who's putting forward publicly held positions, and that would be so traumatic that the government must step in and censor.
Well, the Australian government just seemed increasingly out of step with other Western democracies when it comes to gender identity. Certainly in America, certainly here.
That's certainly what we found. I was able to go out with Chris on the street whilst we were over in Australia and do some interviews to find out what's going on. And whilst we did find many people who were supportive of gender ideology, when we talked to them about what it really entailed, it turned out that most of them had never heard of, for example, a puberty blocker when we got into those conversations. And so they weren't aware of the damage that this can cause children from a young age who feel confused, who are reaching out for love and affirmation. And instead of being told you're born perfectly in the right body and we love you the way you are, or being told maybe you should take life-altering chemicals that will harm your body forever. And so when we were able to explain the science, the mechanisms behind this kind of treatment, a lot of Australians were shocked. They just had not come across the weight of evidence against gender ideology.
So that would suggest to me, like it was in the UK, where it was really the Isla Bryce case that blew it apart, where I think regular people were just, the silent majority were exposed to this male rapist, self-declaring that they were actually a woman and being sent into a female jail. It seems that the difference is in America, they haven't had that pivotal moment, or it seems to be that the media there are not allowing this to be fully discussed.
In Australia. Well, yes, gender ideology thrives under censorship. It's the only way that it can thrive, because when you can have those honest conversations, then it's easily dismantled just by the facts, the science, the common sense. But it's countries where governments do have a great control over what is said online, what is said in the street, that do allow this to flourish. You know, every time that Chris went out in a different city in Australia, he was approached by some sort of authority who wanted to silence him or remove him just for having those conversations on the street. So it's a palpable tension when it comes to that shutdown on free speech. But our hope is that cases like Chris's, and Elon Musk is now involved as well, also challenging this decision because of his belief in free speech. These cases can shine a light and allow not only the message about gender ideology to get out, but also to expose these governments for taking that very authoritarian approach to controlling everyday conversations of the people.
So what actually happened with the case then? What's the present situation?
So we've completed our 5-day hearing. As you said, there was many professors and experts brought in with all sorts of crazy, wacky opinions about whether Chris could have caused serious harm or not. But I think that the weight of the case was really put forward well by Chris's team. And we will be able to hear a judgment actually in the second half of this year. It's going to take quite a while to reach that decision. But hopefully when we can pick it up, then we will be able to celebrate a win or else head on to an appeal.
OK, well, we'll find out. Well, good luck with it anyway.
Thank you
so much for joining us. That is the Communications Officer, ADF International, Lois McClatchy-Miller. Coming up shortly, Maya Forstater from Sex Matters joins me to discuss the government eyeing up changes to equality law to protect single-sex spaces, including stricter rules for trans access. But next on Free Speech Nation, are we seeing the end of British museums? The Tate Gallery has reportedly lost 2.2 million visitors in just 5 years, and fears are rising that others are heading the same way. See you in a couple of minutes.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. New working week really is going to be a changeable one. Certainly very different weather compared to what we have been used to. Most of us seeing some rain at times, but in between there will be some sunshine. And the reason why is really we're going to be dominated by areas of low pressure as we come through towards the Easter weekend. Back to the here and now as we end Sunday. Plenty of showers around initially, but for a lot of England and Wales, actually, it will turn drier and clearer overnight, with showers mainly focused across Scotland and Northern Ireland, although they will return across western parts of Wales and southwest England later on. But in the clearer skies further east, a chilly night to come. We could see a touch of frost in places. So Monday morning is going to be a bit of a mixed picture across Scotland. There will be plenty of showers around. There will also be some sunshine in places, and some of the showers will be of a wintry nature across the high ground. Quite a cloudy picture for Northern Ireland too, with some showers here, with maybe some more heavy and persistent rain developing across southwest Scotland, down into northwest England, Wales and southwest England. But elsewhere across England, a bright start to the day, although it will be a bit chilly. But the sunshine will quickly get to work, and it will feel fairly pleasant across East Anglia and the southeast and part of England as we go through the course of the day. But for the zone between eastern Scotland all the way down towards Wales and maybe parts of southwest England, it is going to be a bit of a miserable day in places with further outbreaks of rain, although towards the west, Northern Ireland and western Scotland, we will see some sunshine interspersed by the showers. As mentioned, pleasant in the south, we could see highs reaching 20 degrees. Looking towards Tuesday, a bit of a messy picture right across the board really. Areas of rain working their way northward. Some of this will be heavy in nature. Best of the brightest and driest weather probably across Northern Ireland and western Scotland. And that changeable picture continuing as we move towards the middle of the week. And for all of us, temperatures generally around average for April.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. The Tate has lost over 2 million visitors in 5 years, a sharp decline that raises real concerns about the future of Britain's galleries. While finances falter, the focus inside many museums has shifted from celebrating art to promoting ideology. Labels preach, exhibitions moralise, and the public seems to be drifting away. As institutions double down on politics, they may be forgetting what brought people through the doors in the first place. To help answer if political ideology is killing our museums, I am joined by campaigner and founder of Freedom in the Arts, Rosie Kay. There you are, Rosie, welcome, lovely to see you.
Lovely to see you too, thanks very much.
So you wrote a piece this week which essentially argued, off the back of these numbers declining, that museums are in trouble.
Well, the Tates had a 25% drop in attendance since pre-COVID levels. And I suppose, it's got to the point where they've spoken to DCMS, the Department for Media, Sports and Culture, to say that, there is a risk to their ongoing concern, although I wouldn't think that there would actually be a risk. And I suppose one would hope that that might cause a pause for reflection as to why people are not coming back, because this isn't the same across all museums and galleries. In fact, we've seen increases at places like the British Museum. So I think we were trying to look at why audiences might be being turned off. And what we've kind of discovered is that this kind of preachy and moralising approach, very ideologically driven approach to museums, galleries, collections, is simply turning audiences off, and they're voting with their feet. Yeah, so you mentioned the British Museum there. Do you think that? Why do you think they've somehow bucked the trend? Have they focused less on for a better term, the culture wars? They do a bit of it here and there, but I wouldn't say it's kind of like as embedded into like the very fabric of their being in the way that the Tate has. And we've seen also with the Royal Academy, they're sort of, when exhibitions focus less on the art and the excellence and really on instructing an audience that's intelligent and not patronising, then those exhibitions do really, really well. V&A is another example where they've really managed to appeal to people and people are coming back in droves. But if they try and moralise and preach, we're seeing that gradually over time, audiences are just not returning. Yeah, COVID is obviously part of the reason we still haven't got back to those numbers from before. But I think the most interesting point that you raised in your article was that time where audiences didn't need, where the museums didn't require an audience, they kind of, it feels like the powers that be kind of have lent into that and gone, oh, brilliant, we don't need audiences anymore. We can just essentially appeal to ourselves. There's been a kind of journey, I think, over the past 10 years in the arts, and it really sort of started with Brexit, where I'd say that most people in the arts were Remainers and have remained Remainers. And instead of questioning why people may have voted for Brexit, there was like this deep, incurious attitude and a slight disdain built to the general public. You've got to remember that organisations like this are funded by taxpayers' money, by the National Lottery, you know, and our ticket sort of sales as well. So they really, these collections, you know, they have a duty to kind of look after them for all of us and to share with all of us. COVID really cemented those attitudes, and those staff that didn't lose their job were often on furlough, and the galleries, while losing a lot of money, they managed to hold their jobs, and the galleries were left empty. And I think when they reopened, this sort of growing disdain for the general populace, I think that's when it started to become slightly preachy, and the audience was something that had to be educated. They had to show, the museums had to show how enlightened they were, and some sort of teaching lesson. Now, there may have been some really good intentions at the beginning of this, but galleries that have stuck to this seem to have doubled, tripled down recently. And my worry is it's really, it's giving an open goal to those that criticise the arts and criticise arts funding. If they're not listening to the public, then the politicians will come in and they'll use it for their own reasons to try and cut funding. So I'm trying to sort of sound a warning bell to the arts to say, you know, ignore audiences and artists at your peril.
Well, let's see if they learn that lesson. I hope they do, of course. Well, thank you so much. That was writer, campaigner and founder of Freedom in the Arts, Rosie Kay. Thank you. That's the end of the first hour of Free Speech Nation, but don't go anywhere, because there's lots more to come between now and 9 o'clock, including Maya Forstater, who will be joining me to discuss the government eyeing up changes to equality law to protect single-sex spaces. Wow, wouldn't that be a nice thing? See you in a couple of minutes. It will be a nice thing.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. New working week really is going to be a changeable one. Certainly very different weather compared to what we have been used to. Most of us seeing some rain at times, but in between there will be some sunshine. And the reason why is really we're going to be dominated by areas of low pressure as we come through towards the Easter weekend. Back to the here and now as we end Sunday. Plenty of showers around initially, but for a lot of England and Wales, actually, it will turn drier and clearer overnight, with showers mainly focused across Scotland and Northern Ireland, although they will return across western parts of Wales and southwest England later on. But in the clearer skies further east, a chilly night to come. We could see a touch of frost in places. So Monday morning, it's going to be a bit of a mixed picture across Scotland. There will be plenty of showers around. There will also be some sunshine in places, and some of the showers will be of a wintry nature across the high ground. Quite a cloudy picture for Northern Ireland too, with some showers here, with maybe some more heavy and persistent rain developing across southwest Scotland, down into northwest England, Wales and southwest England. But elsewhere across England, a bright start to the day, although it will be a bit chilly. But the sunshine will quickly get to work, and it will feel fairly pleasant across East Anglia and the southeast and part of England as we go through the course of the day. But for the zone between eastern Scotland all the way down towards Wales and maybe parts of southwest England, it is going to be a bit of a miserable day in places with further outbreaks of rain, although towards the west, Northern Ireland and western Scotland, we will see some sunshine interspersed by the showers. As mentioned, pleasant in the south, we could see highs reaching 20 degrees. Looking towards Tuesday, a bit of a messy picture right across the board really. Areas of rain working their way northward. Some of this will be heavy in nature. Best of the brightest and driest weather probably across Northern Ireland and western Scotland. And that changeable picture continuing as we move towards the middle of the week. And for all of us, temperatures generally around average for April.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be driving away with this brand new Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps 4, comes with sky roof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
down to earth,
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
and most importantly, honest,
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
There is plenty more to come still on Free Speech Nation, including our interview with Maya Forstater. But first, we're going to have a news update with Sam Francis.
Very good evening from the newsroom. The top story tonight. Ukrainian officials now say 34 people, including, sadly, 2 children, have been killed in a devastating Russian missile attack on Sumy, with 117 still injured, among them 15 children. 2 ballistic missiles struck the city centre as people marked Palm Sunday, with harrowing footage showing bodies in the street, burning vehicles and bystanders pulling multiple victims from the rubble. A second missile packed with fragmentation elements is believed to have exploded mid-air for maximum destruction. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has called it an irreparable loss for the whole country, branding the attack as filthy scum and accusing the Russian president of deliberately ignoring ceasefire efforts. Well, tonight, rescue efforts are ongoing, with officials warning the death toll could still rise. The attack has now drawn swift international condemnation, France and the UK among them, both calling for urgent action, with Sumy's governor saying Russia had struck at the busiest time of day to cause maximum damage. Breaking tonight, counter-terror police have confirmed 2 prison officers are still in hospital with serious injuries following Saturday's attack at HMP Frankland. We understand a 3rd officer has now been discharged. In what's being described as a vicious and unprovoked assault, Hasham Abedi, the brother of the Manchester Arena bomber, doused the officers with boiling oil before stabbing them with homemade weapons. Abedi, serving a record-breaking 55-year minimum sentence for helping his brother kill 22 people, was being held in one of the prison's specialist separation centres, designed for the UK's most dangerous extremist inmates. The number of people crossing the Channel in small boats has hit a record high for the first 4 months of the year. More than 8,000 migrants have arrived so far in 2025, already surpassing the totals for the same period in each of the last 3 years. That includes 656 people who made the journey just yesterday alone, the busiest day of the year so far. But the Home Office says it is ramping up enforcement and cracking down on people smuggling gangs, and called the crossings dangerous and a threat to the UK's border. President Donald Trump is in excellent cognitive and physical health, according to his White House doctor, following a 5-hour checkup. The 78-year-old scored a perfect 30 out of 30 on a cognitive test and showed robust heart, lung and neurological function. It's his first health update since being grazed by a bullet in last year's assassination attempt, with the memo confirming scarring on his right ear. His doctor credited Trump's active lifestyle and frequent golf victories for his tip-top health. And good news, Tooth Fairy, you can take the day off. In a world first, scientists at King's College London have successfully grown human teeth in a lab. The team managed to get cells talking to each other and forming the very beginnings of a tooth. It's something animals and sharks, elephants, well, they do that all the time. Now humans could be next. Scientists are now exploring 2 options: either grow the tooth in a lab and then implant it, no thank you, or place early stage cells in the mouth and let them grow there, rather not. It's still early days, but if it works, the breakthrough could one day mean we ditch the drill and say goodbye to fillings and implants altogether. That's the news on GB News. Plenty more still to come. Don't go anywhere.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Howie. Coming up this hour, feminist campaigner Maya Forstater will be joining me to discuss possible changes to the equality law. I'll be joined also by leading barrister Philip Taylor to find out why some lawyers are advocating for Hamas, and we'll be delving into this week's social sensations. But first, let's get some more questions from our audience. First of all, it's from Ryan.
Evening, everyone. My question is, are LGB people more likely to harm themselves?
Are LGBT people more likely to harm themselves? Because this is from a report this week that lesbian, gay and bisexual people are more than twice as likely to self-harm or commit suicide, according to new data from the Office for National Statistics. Women and LGBT plus people aged 16 to 24 years old have particularly high risk of suicide or self-harm compared to heterosexual people, the figures show. Are you familiar with this article?
Yeah, I am. And I think historically, when it was more difficult to be gay in this country, I think that data would be borne out. But I think it's also complicated by the fact that the last census had some very muddy questioning around gender identity, and I think a lot of people were ticking the wrong boxes, so I don't know how reliable this data is.
I think that's exactly the take that I had from it, is the onus, they produced this data from the census. They've even themselves admitted previously, Adam, that essentially it's useless because they were unable to really define sex and gender. There were people conflating between the two. So to try and extrapolate sort of conclusions from it, it just feels it's not fit for purpose.
Well, obviously, if it is something that's genuinely happening, it's obviously very shocking. And but I guess we also don't want to fall into thinking that correlation automatically equals causation. I think Ryan raises a very good point, which is yes, if the questions are muddy, that is going to skew the data, and we aren't going to have a clearer picture as we might want. We know this is also true in the NHS with people with certain heart conditions or diseases around self-identity. They started focusing on people about how they identify rather than their biological sex, and that's that's actually wasted years of data. There's very serious consequences. But if it is, like I said, if it is true, it's very upsetting.
It is upsetting, and Samaritans have talked about this and what they can use this data for. But also, what I saw in the report, Lewis, and I hesitate to go to you with a serious point about suicide, is the definition of they're referring here to LGB plus. Now, that's an undefined term.
Right.
So when you're trying to deal with these literally life and death situations, that's not helpful to not be able to define the actual categories that you're talking about.
And what is the government doing trying to figure this stuff out? This is, you know...
Because they're trying to save lives?
They have a duty to protect the people.
They don't have... It doesn't say a duty to protect. Does it really? Here's the point.
I think it's implicit.
The point is it real? Is it not real? Are people who are LGBT... What about the T in the LGBT?
Well, they refer to LGB+, so we don't know exactly
So it could
who
be
they're including.
anybody. It could be people whose religion is self-harming, could be wanting to self-harm. Because that plus thing could be anything, really. Could it be not?
Does hosting a TV show with you in it count as self-harm?
I would say that it does.
Yes,
because I'm about to say something that's horrible, which is...
Let's move on to our next question from Sean.
Can I just say what...
No, please don't. OK, what do you want to say?
No, I shouldn't say it.
OK, good. Got away with that one. OK, our next question is from Sean.
OK, there seems to be a bit of a theme about racism tonight. So the question is it racist to hire white people?
To not hire white people? I think, yeah. Well, either way. Tories have proposed a complaints system for people who miss out on jobs because of positive action, schemes to be set up under an amendment to Angela Rayner's employment rights bill. Positive action schemes, which are legal, allow bosses to prioritise a job candidate based on their race, gender or sexuality. So it's quite complicated. Sean, do you have a particular position on this?
Well, from somebody who hires a lot of people over the years, I've no problem with hiring anybody, whoever they are. So I've no bias against anybody, whether it be white or anything else. So I think the fact that we have any kind of question about this is just shows you the way things are in the world today, that people are very, they're very ideologically based, to be honest with you. Yeah.
As I imagine when you were hiring people, you are hiring people, that you would do so under the category of how good they would be at the job.
Well, I work in the arts and media and television. So hiring people is based on their merits, not on their ethnicity or whatever it is, yeah.
So, Sean, would you give a job to Lewis?
Well, if he was the right man for the job, yes.
There we go.
Adam, this is essentially bosses are going to be, under the proposal, forced to justify racist policies, potentially.
Yes, and it's interesting because obviously they would think that it's not racist, but obviously it's discriminatory by nature. I think this is really interesting. I think with all of these things, it always seems like great on paper. And wouldn't it be nice if any group of every workforce was a mixture of like a white guy, a black guy, a gay guy, a lesbian, somebody in a wheelchair, somebody who was autistic? But it's like it's never going to happen, and it should always just be who is the best person for the job. And if it is a mixture of people, fantastic. But we shouldn't. The danger of having it, trying to get people who are all, I don't know, for diversity's sake, is that you might get someone who's not the best at the job and might end up harming people.
Lewis, this is the Tories pushing forward this proposal. Of course, a lot of these, it all started under the Tories, really. So now that they're saying, oh, it's racist if you're hiring somebody just based on their ethnicity or what's called positive hiring, it feels like a little bit too late for all of that from them.
Well, it's one of those, this is what this show is all about, some boring belief system. The fact is people shouldn't be probed what's going on in their head. We got enough things running around in our head, and we got to keep track. Oh, is this the right person, the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? Am I not doing the right thing? People have a hard time making a decision as it is, and you're looking at somebody and says, am I allowed to hire this guy? Am I not allowed to hire this guy?
You mean woman?
Woman or guy, or based on some bull. Something like gender, which is a completely fictitious, made-up thing. It's not even like sex, which is male, female. It's like you could be a million different gender-type things, and you got to sit there and worry whether you're doing the right thing. I think we need to scream and to say, you know what? I'm not hiring this guy because he's this.
American,
yeah, you could say that. You could say that. You know what it is, Josh?
I totally agree with you.
You're totally right. No, you're totally right, because if someone doesn't want to hire me, because I think this is an English country, what are we doing hiring some loudmouth New York Jew? We don't want him. We don't want him. They should have said that.
I think
you're just
people very much do want you, Lewis.
I know they do. That's why I say it, because I'm not going to have my feelings hurt, I don't think.
Sure.
Is that that's what it is? People should be allowed to say, you know what, we're looking for an English guy to lead this country out of the pain that we're in.
His name's Keir Starmer.
Yeah.
So, Joe...
The people don't like that, Josh.
I thought it was pretty funny.
because they know it's not realistic.
Our next question is from Jerry.
Good evening, Josh. So my question is, should parents get off WhatsApp?
Yeah, should parents get off WhatsApp? This is schools are asking lawyers to draw up codes of conduct for parent WhatsApp groups over fears that teachers could take their employers to court over abuse. Head teachers are said to be concerned that they could be liable if parents use the groups to spread false rumours or espouse racist, sexist or homophobic comments about staff. So do you belong to any parents' WhatsApp groups?
I'm still trying to get on WhatsApp. I'd like to be invited.
Do you belong to any parents' fax machine groups?
No, I don't. No, but I think I do know a bit more about WhatsApp. So I think the problem here is that my understanding is it's voluntary. So you have to be invited to a group in the first place, and you can leave at any time. So I'm not quite sure. The risk of being a bit Lewis here and saying this might be a bit boring.
Yeah.
But did you see the family the parents who were arrested the other week for messages on WhatsApp, and the school took to be as offensive material? So if anybody here is a parent and on a WhatsApp group, the question becomes what is offensive and to whom. And if you're complaining about your teacher, the kids' teacher saying, oh, they're rubbish, or they're teaching gender ideology, or things that other people might take to be offensive, or if the teacher was to read these messages and take offence, then the question becomes how, in this story, is the school liable for that?
Well, yeah, but is that an appropriate platform to be making those allegations on in the first place?
Well, you should check out my parents' WhatsApp groups. They're pretty hardcore. What do you think about this, Adam? Do you think that it's necessary for the schools to actually set up policies for the parents?
I think what the most important thing is, if you are in a WhatsApp group with parents and everything else, and you're going to be making disparaging remarks about any of the students or staff, you just need to really watch out for the snitches. Who's going to be snitching on you and saying, oh, he said that, thing like that. You've got to make sure you've got a tight group of parents and you're all proper mates. And if you say some horrendous things, it stays in a WhatsApp group. I'm in some terrible WhatsApp groups, but I trust all the people implicitly, so it's fine.
Yeah. What do you think about this, Liz? Your kids are a little bit...
They're older
now, so you never had the parent... Were you on parents' Facebook group?
They didn't have electricity, so it was a different...
But that's only because you didn't pay the bill.
It was a different back then.
The age.
It's like it's part of the police state. Is the left in this country, or whatever, team world, they just want to watch over everybody. And the right... And when I say left, I mean even the Tories, too. They just want to watch over everybody, make everything illegal so they can punish people, and so people don't say horrible things or say only nice things.
Yeah, we just do it on telly.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's... I mean, it's one of those things. Something is the matter with the country. We need someone to fight for Britain, for the freedom that Britain used to have, that it doesn't have anymore. And it's not me, because I'm a New York English American Jew. No one's interested in what I've... But somebody else.
Someone else.
Say,
right, let's see if it's John who's going to do the... Are you going to lead us, John?
Are you going to lead us? Lead us. The Angles, the Saxons, the Jutes, the Scots, the Irish.
Yeah.
The Welsh.
OK, I'll take that as a no.
The Celts.
It's too much pressure, John. Don't worry about it. It's
fine. I had that in my eyes with glaucoma, but that was taking the drops, so it's all right. My question is, do accents matter?
Do accents matter? Yes. Thank you, John. This is the BBC ranked the Birmingham accent as the most hated on a secret leaked cable. This is a veteran war correspondent revealed. Kate Addy said accents were one of the country's complex matters and stressed that they vary hugely. Of course they are. What's your accent, John?
Scottish. I was born in Stirling, and drifted down here in 1970. People vary in their sensitivity. Some people don't notice an accent, and other people think I have a really strong accent. When I'm speaking German, people tell me I don't have an accent.
OK. But, Adam, if you could tell me what John just said.
I think John's looking forward to a nice nap later, to be honest. Look what...
Hey, sorry, John. I apologise for that.
I know,
you can go back to sleep now.
Yeah, I mean, look, it was going to be... On the list of the least liked accent, it was always going to be one place, isn't it? And I think Birmingham also has the people. So, you know, those two mixture together, it had to be one, but, you know.
Yeah, Leeds is the most popular accent. Did you know that?
Oh, I didn't know that, no. I thought Scotland was very popular to sell things.
Yeah, but John brought it down, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, I used to speak with a New York accent.
As Yorkshire as a whole, I believe.
Yeah. Well, but can
you do any accents?
I can do my New York accent, but I also went to speech therapy.
So you can do your own accent? That's really impressive.
Would you stop interrupting? So accents are important. They are, you know, they mean something. If somebody's got a certain kind of accent, you wouldn't let them fly an airplane because they might fly it into a building. It's
true.
You know what I mean?
What?
I was thinking more just like if somebody was speaking like a roadman.
I'm saying that accents do matter. Whether the BBC should be involved in checking this stuff out is ridiculous. The BBC should.
Well, this is a secret list from back in the day, I believe.
What back in the day? So why are we talking about it now? If it's back in the day.
The question is whether it's still applicable. Whether we still find the opposite now. It used to be that that it was all about having what's it called? Received pronunciation, RP. Now
pronunciation.
Yes, pronunciation. Very good. But the point is now just 2% of the population have RP,
which arguably makes it better because then it doesn't represent anyone, so then nobody can get offended that they're favouring one group.
Very good point, and it means that they put some work into it.
Let's get it down to 1%. Let's get it down to one person, and then we can just stop complaining.
Okay. I agree with him. Because it should, people, to get that RP thing, it takes work to get it.
Okay. So next on Free Speech Nation, I'll be joined by the CEO and co-founder of Sex Matters, Maya Forsetter, to discuss a radical change in the equality law. Do not go anywhere.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah,
and now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
Britain's first gangster turned bishop says that Prince William has nicked my best ideas. I'm not joking. It's true. You can hear him laughing next to me now. Pastor Mick champions a one-stop shop for supporting rough sleepers. Tell GB News viewers a bit about your incredible story, how you started out and how you ended up as a man on the cloth.
Yeah, so this was basically back from addiction, abuse as a child, mental health, and then into a life of crime and spiralled down, and had a final stay in a psychiatric unit on a crack addict, and my life kind of built up from there. I've been clean off drugs and alcohol for 14 years, and it's been a really painful journey. Well, I find that, you know, in the pain, if you look at the news now, there's so much pain for people, you know, it's like... And I've managed to find out where the joy is in the pain, and that's what I try to do. I try to show people where the joy is in the pain, because if you love, it's going to hurt. And the measure of the pain is sometimes a measure of the love that you have for other people and inside yourself. So the book kind of tells the stories of people who've had a lot of pain, but yet... they've come through, just like myself.
Let me just hold this up now. The book, Walk in My Shoes. Oh, that is on sale now, and it's got a message on the back's got royal approval. It's impossible to visit church on the street and not be deeply moved by the work the organisation does for those in need. His Royal Highness, the Prince of Wales. Of course, you've got a huge fan in Prince William. He's been to visit you.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
down to earth,
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
and most importantly, honest,
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. In a rare and welcome outbreak of common sense, the government are considering changes to the equality law to protect single-sex spaces. The Equality and Human Rights Commission have submitted revised guidance, which last was updated in 2010 and is now considered out of date, obviously. To discuss what this actually means, I'm delighted to be joined by the CEO and co-founder of Sex Matters, Maya Forstater. Maya, welcome.
Hi, John.
This feels like a big deal.
Well, there's two things going on this week which are both a big deal. One is the Equality and Human Rights Commission, as it's reported, have submitted this new guidance, and the other is the For Women Scotland case, which is going to get its judgment from the Supreme Court on Wednesday. Neither of them are really about changing equality law. They're both about getting back to the law as it was passed in 2010, which built-in protections for women and for single-sex services. But what happened after that was that guidance was produced which wasn't in line with the law. So that guidance is being revised, and the Equality and Human Rights Commission has submitted the new guidance to the government. It has to be agreed by Parliament eventually. Guidance sounds like it's not a big deal, but this is statutory guidance. It will be agreed by Parliament, and any case of discrimination that goes to a court or tribunal, they have to pay attention to this guidance. So it's not changing the law, but it's bringing the guidance back in line with the law, and away from the sort of nonsense that it became when it started to think that single-sex services were open for negotiation.
Because we saw this conflation between gender and sex, and how I guess that was used as a kind of loophole, and then that in turn seems to have been used by activist organisations to then implement policy across the country.
Well, I don't know what gender is. Sometimes you can say gender when you mean sex, and that's fine. And then sometimes people say gender when they mean the sex somebody wishes they were. And those are two different meanings. But the guidance that was brought out after the Equality Act was passed said in black and white from the regulator that if you are providing a single-sex service that's lawful, you have to allow trans people to access that service according to the gender that they present as. And, translate that into English, it means you have to allow a man in a dress into the women's changing rooms, showers, toilets. That's not what the law said, but that's what the guidance said. Hopefully this new guidance from the Equality and Human Rights Commission is going to get rid of all that and be very clear that single-sex services and spaces are really single-sex.
So will they finally clear up this? Because a lot of it seems to hinge on whether somebody has a gender recognition certificate or not. And some people are saying, well, this now means that organisations will have to check whether people have a GRC before using the toilets. That would be the
yeah, that seems like I don't know where that came from. I've not seen any serious proposals for that from anybody, and it just makes no sense. A gender recognition certificate, there are about 8,000 people in the country that have them. They allow them to change their sex for some legal purposes, but there are tight rules around what happens when you see a certificate like that. You can't pass that information on to anyone else. And somebody who has a certificate, it doesn't mean that you would perceive them as not being the sex that they are, and it doesn't mean that there's any good reason why they should be in a single-sex service. Because, a space that's there for dignity and privacy of women is not a space that's there for men who think they're women, whether they have a certificate or not. So I think that's probably a bit of misunderstanding in the newspapers today. The For Women Scotland case that's being heard, that the judgment's coming down on Wednesday is about gender recognition certificates, and it is about this question about the definition of sex in the Equality Act. Does it include people with a gender recognition certificate or not? And that's about the law. But in practice, service providers, you can't tell if someone has a gender recognition certificate. Most trans people don't have a certificate. You can't ask them. You can't do anything with that information if you had it. So what you have to do is, if you're a large swimming pool, for example, you have male changing rooms, you have female changing rooms, and you have somewhere unisex, and then you're looking after everybody. You're not asking too many questions, and you're not trying to make a distinction between trans people with a certificate and without a certificate. You're just saying there's somewhere where everyone can change in privacy, but you have to follow the rules.
Yeah, because these spaces already exist. We
Exactly.
have unisex spaces, but of course the idea is that somehow if trans people, men or women, were to use these unisex spaces, then somehow that negates their personal self-belief and whether that's legal or not. I guess from Wednesday, does that mean we're actually now going to know what sex is? Finally?
I know. Like, we've all been in suspended animation since last November, not knowing what sex is, and the Supreme Court judges are going to tell us. They will tell us in the Equality Act what the definition of sex is. Does it mean your body, the sex you were born, the sex everyone can see that you are, or does it mean this secret piece of paper? So we will get that on Wednesday, and then the question of what that means in practice goes back to the Equality and Human Rights Commission and back to the government. And the government said in its manifesto that it would protect single-sex services for women. And so what it would need to do if we win in Reform in Scotland, if they win, is to put out really, really clear guidance to say that single-sex services are not the start of a negotiation. They're there to protect women and men, everyone's privacy, all the services that they need, and they're not needing to be thought about on a case-by-case basis. They just need really, really simple, clear guidance that allows people to say, no, we understand that some people feel they'd really like to be in an opposite-sex service, but it's just not possible.
Yeah, and part of this advice that they're putting through, or the guidance that they're putting through, seems to be that the organisations are going to have to say that they understand the difference between sex and gender.
I don't think so. I mean, it sounds like everyone needs to go and get a gender studies degree. Everyone knows what a man and a woman is. Whether you call that sex or whether you call it gender doesn't really matter. It's about biology. So I don't think people need to worry about the difference between sex and gender. They just have to know what sex is, know what clear rules are, and be polite to people, but not open a negotiation.
I mean, I would agree with you in ideally, but it seems to be that this deliberate conflation between the two terms is what's got us into this situation in the first place, which might be why the guidance to have an organisation say very clearly sex is something that's immutable and real and gender is part of a person's identity is a very useful way of then going, OK, they get it, as opposed to an organisation who's still trying to muddy the waters.
Sure, but, I mean, the Equality Act applies to everyone. It applies to a little cafe down the road. It applies to every primary school, every public service. And you don't need to train everyone to have an answer about the difference between sex and gender. You just need to tell people, everyone knows what those signs mean, the little man, the little woman. That means this is a single-sex space. It's not open for negotiation.
And it's going to come from the Supreme Court. The reason we can even really talk about these issues is because of your own court case. Why is it the courts that seem to be the ones that are actually taking this? Is it because the bravery required, is the legal system allows them to hide behind it, as opposed to a politician sticking their neck out?
I mean, I think it's partly because the law is actually quite good, and when you get back to the law protects us. It was the Equality Act that protected me. But the other thing about court cases is people can't run away, they can't get offended and storm off, and they can't really call you a bigot and refuse to talk to you. They have to come in and put their case in front of a judge who hears both of them. And when that happens, generally, sense and reality wins.
Yeah, well, I think some of my favourite moments over the last few years have been these court cases where you would read the tribunal tweets and then you would see some insane things that are put out there that I guess some people thought made sense, but when they are exposed like that, it was very revealing and quite funny.
Yes.
Sadly.
Yes.
But, I mean, it's not funny that people lost their jobs.
No, and I do think politicians have to be brave and step up and say, you know, what is the policy intent of this? Are they really committed to protecting women's single-sex services, including everyday spaces, but also things like women's refuges and rape crisis centres? And there, it's not just about are you lawfully able to have a rule and enforce it, but can you get funding? You know, if the public bodies that are funding these things say, well, we want you to be inclusive, we want you to include men who identify as women in a women's service, then it's very difficult for those services to say no. So you do need to have bravery and clarity from government, not just the courts.
Just hope that this week we actually finally get it.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. CEO, co-founder of Sex Matters, Maya Forstater. Huge round of applause. We owe her everything. Next on Free Speech Nation, a group of lawyers are campaigning for Hamas to be taken off the list of prescribed terrorist organisations. What's going on? Find out in a couple of minutes. Thank you so much.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean all clear skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there, it's an east-west split across the Mediterranean as we go through the next couple of days. Fairly settled for much of Turkey and Greece. Temperatures here climbing into the low 20s in places, but for much of Italy and southern France, actually some very unsettled weather developing. Could see some flash flooding in places. Also fairly unsettled for Spain and Portugal, although down towards the Canaries we should see some decent sunshine. For Tenerife, Wednesday, Thursday, we could see highs reaching 23 degrees.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
Victims of an absolutely horrific and heartbreaking crime. Exactly 1 month ago, their home was broken into by machete-wielding thugs. Well, RAF officer Jason Schutt and his partner Sashi had £20,000 of cash and valuables taken from their property in Ruislip, West London, while Sashi was being held at Machete Point. Now, the armed gang also stole their beloved pug dog, Ozzy, you can see now on your screens. And the family said they aren't focused on getting the money, the jewellery or the watches back. They just want Ozzy back.
I followed myself through into the dining room area when I heard footsteps coming down the stairs. And at this point, they told me not to move. They had a machete around my neck, turned me and put me up against the bottom banisters. And while this was carrying on, the machete was still around my neck.
He's like a live teddy bear. He was just so cuddly, and he was so kind. He was like a human, but obviously as a dog. He was just amazing, and yeah.
We can see that dog on the screens there now, and the dog is now missing, and you obviously dearly, dearly would love to get Ozzy back. What can people do to help? Is there any distinctive marks, anything that may help the public out there to assist you in this noble search?
Yeah, well, he's got a scar on his back leg. Obviously, he'll reply to his name, Ozzy.
You can see on screen there, if you're watching at home, there is that distinctive mark. It looks like the back rear leg.
Yeah,
so the back right flank leg there, got that scar, beautiful pug. And I believe the local community have chipped in. They're trying their best to help you as well.
All over social media. They've been great.
GB News.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. Just when you think you've seen it all, somehow it gets worse. Hamas are attempting to use the ECHR to challenge its prescription as a terrorist organisation in the UK. They claim that the ban breaches the human rights of Hamas supporters and their freedom of speech and right to protest. However, I want to focus on the lawyers fighting this case for Hamas. They have denied being paid by Hamas. So what is their motivation here? Is it ideological? And if so, does it matter? And can anything be done about it? To find out, I'm joined by barrister Philip Taylor. Philip, welcome.
Good afternoon. Good evening.
So, Philip, first of all, let's just quickly do a recap on what this case is.
Well, as I understand it, and it may be that I've misunderstood some parts of this, but the position as I understand it is that there is a challenge by way, perhaps, of what we call judicial review, to say that the government has not got the right to proscribe an organisation, in this case, Hamas. Now, I say that they have no cause of action. In other words, the whole thing is flawed. And the problem we have, if I've again understood the position, the people who are actually making this application on behalf of Hamas are not being paid for it, so it's a pro bono type of application. But I say they have absolutely no grounds whatsoever to pursue that type of application. Because if a government says, we think that that organisation is an organisation that we don't think we should have anything to do with because they commit serious offences and they are damaging the state, in other words, our state, they shouldn't have the right to even make that application. Now, that gets onto the wider problem of the lawyers who are involved in this. And I have to say, sadly, as a practising barrister, there are some colleagues in my profession who get too close sometimes to a particular subject. There's always a general rule that you take one step back from your client. In this case, it's Hamas. We obviously have something called the cab rank principle, which says that if someone needs to be represented and you have the ability to represent them, you should do so, because otherwise you get to a position where if you say, oh, I'm not going to represent that person because I don't like them, if that happens, you're going to have a difficulty with justice because it means that people will not be represented. Solicitors can choose whether they will accept a client or not. As members of the bar, we accept, under the cab rank principle, we are basically a cab for hire. They come along and they ask us to represent them. And that's exactly what we do. However, there must be occasions where we have to look at the strength of a case that is being put forward, and we have to think very carefully about whether, in fact, there's any likelihood of success, whether there's a reasonable likelihood of success with any case. And in this set of circumstances, I say, on what I have read, and it may be that I'm maybe mistaken, but I don't think I am, I believe that what's happened is they are trying to challenge, and that's Hamas through various organisations, they're trying to decide whether they have a right to say, we shouldn't be a prescribed organisation, we should have the right to go around killing people, which is what they do, taking people hostage and behaving in a thoroughly appalling manner. Now, my view is that in circumstances like that, if the government says, for the sake of the security of this country, you should be a prescribed organisation and we'll have nothing to do with you, that should be the end of it, and there should be no right by any group of people, whoever they might be, radical lawyers or whatever they might be, they shouldn't have the right to pursue that cause. So that's the position.
And something like October 7th happened, and we saw the largest massacre of Jews since the Holocaust. To then come off the back of that, to then represent if you weren't convinced before that they were a terrorist organisation, surely just them filming themselves committing these heinous acts of terror would be enough evidence. So this is what I don't get, is I understand this cab rank principle, but who here is going to them and saying, oh, you have to take this case? Did they have to take this case?
No, I don't think they do. My view is that you can, in certain circumstances, say the cab rank will not apply. Now, I say in the circumstances that normally is if they are not paying you any money and you're not being given a proper fee, or it's outside your own area of expertise, you can legitimately say, I'm not going to do this particular, I'm not going to accept instructions in this particular case. What we have here, I think, is a small band of extreme lawyers, if I can put it that way, radicals, we can call them, who obviously have a different view about society. And they've come together and said, well, I think in these circumstances, we should try and test the water and see if Hamas can actually win the day. And in my view, that's an affront to everything that we have seen nationally and internationally with what has happened with this organisation. It's not acceptable, and I hope it's thrown out, and it's, to use the expression, laughed out of court.
Well, of course, I hope the same. But I guess my concern is this blurring of the lines, because you seem to say, from what I've seen in interviews, and you're referring to the activist lawyers, that seems like a very apt description, because it seems like a lot of their personal views correlate with Hamas, who are a prescribed terrorist organisation. So that's where it blurs for me, because if we live in a country in where our government has prescribed Hamas and said that any support of Hamas is illegal, it feels to me like if you're going to bring consciously a case to court which supports Hamas, isn't that breaking the law? That's what I don't understand.
Whether it's what you call breaking the law or not, I think is a grey area. I think that the problem you have is that, let me take an example with the criminal justice system. You will have people who are really obnoxious defendants. They're terrible people. We've had them. We've had to represent them. If we don't represent them and make sure that the process goes through properly, they will not get proper representation. And I'm afraid in the United States of America, they do have these public prosecutors who are really very, very weak lawyers, and people actually get convicted when they shouldn't be convicted. This is not like that. This, as I understand it, is an application for judicial review of a decision made by the government legitimately to proscribe an organisation. And what we've had since the end of the Second World War is a massive growth in the number of applications for judicial review, many of which are highly spurious. Now, the leading academic, Professor De Smith, wrote a book years ago called Judicial Review of Administrative Action, and he said it's inevitable that most of these actions are sporadic and peripheral actions. What we've now got is the norm coming in, where as soon as there's a problem, we'll slap an application into the court and we'll see where we go. Now, the vast bulk of the applications are looked at as paper applications, and they're thrown out. A few of them are allowed to go to court. The original costs for making a judicial review application are quite small. But once you get to trial in the higher court, it's very, very expensive. And, of course, then you get crowdfunding. The question I've got is, who's funding this? Now, if they're saying, oh, well, we're doing this because of we believe Hamas are wonderful, well, I think they need to think very carefully about whether they want to live in this country or not, because Hamas are a dictatorial bunch of thugs who want to kill anybody who gets in their way. And my view is that they shouldn't be even given the time of day. Now, I'm hoping that that's what the judges will say once they see the papers. We don't know how far it's gone, of course, yet.
Well, we'll find out soon enough. Thank you so much. That's made things much, much clearer. Ladies and gentlemen, big round of applause, please, for Barrister Philip Taylor. Riverway lawyers have responded. Rather than allow freedom of speech, police have embarked on a campaign of political intimidation and persecution of journalists, academics, peace activists and students over their perceived support for Hamas. People in Britain must be free to speak about Hamas and its struggle to restore the Palestinian people the right to self-determination. Next on Free Speech Nation, we'll be casting our beady eye over what's gone viral this week in social sensations. This is Free Speech Nation, only on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. New working week really is going to be a changeable one. Certainly very different weather compared to what we have been used to. Most of us seeing some rain at times, but in between there will be some sunshine. And the reason why is really we're going to be dominated by areas of low pressure as we come through towards the Easter weekend. Back to the here and now as we end Sunday. Plenty of showers around initially, but for a lot of England and Wales, actually, it will turn drier and clearer overnight, with showers mainly focused across Scotland and Northern Ireland, although they will return across western parts of Wales and southwest England later on. But in the clearer skies further east, a chilly night to come. We could see a touch of frost in places. So Monday morning is going to be a bit of a mixed picture across Scotland. There will be plenty of showers around. There will also be some sunshine in places, and some of the showers will be of a wintry nature across the high ground. Quite a cloudy picture for Northern Ireland too, with some showers here, with maybe some more heavy and persistent rain developing across southwest Scotland, down into northwest England, Wales and southwest England. But elsewhere across England, a bright start to the day, although it will be a bit chilly. But the sunshine will quickly get to work, and it will feel fairly pleasant across East Anglia and the southeast and part of England as we go through the course of the day. But for the zone between eastern Scotland all the way down towards Wales and maybe parts of southwest England, it is going to be a bit of a miserable day in places with further outbreaks of rain, although towards the west, Northern Ireland and western Scotland, we will see some sunshine interspersed by the showers. As mentioned, pleasant in the south, we could see highs reaching 20 degrees. Looking towards Tuesday, a bit of a messy picture right across the board really. Areas of rain working their way northward. Some of this will be heavy in nature. Best of the brightest and driest weather probably across Northern Ireland and western Scotland. And that changeable picture continuing as we move towards the middle of the week. And for all of us, temperatures generally around average for April.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's time for Social Sensations, the part of the show where we take a look at what's been going viral this week on social media. First up is this video.
Jewish people, when they usually come to this country, believe, do in Rome as the Romans do. Do not come to this country if your aim is to change everybody to your way of thinking. There are other people...
Hang on!
There are... What?
Hang on. Are you slipping into Islamophobia? Because you're going to have a trouble.
Who has mentioned Islam?
So, I'm not a massive... I've got to be honest, I'm not a huge fan of Michael Fabricant ever since he stole my wig. But... Adam, we talk about this on the show. To see it out in the wild like this, someone just crying Islamophobia. He didn't mention Muslims at all. And the moment that you talk about the reality of the failure of a multicultural society, suddenly that's it. That's where someone goes to and accuses someone essentially of being racist.
Yeah. I mean, I'd just like to start off by saying I don't know anyone on Big Brother. I think they're all washed up. I mean, it's probably why they're on there, to be honest.
Wow.
Other than Mickey Rourke, yeah, but like... But what I would have loved to see in that moment is a Muslim person call her out saying, he didn't mention Muslims, why are you making it about us? And that would have been quite funny.
That would have been quite good, but of course, they're too racist to put Muslims on. That's a joke. That's not me, is that? That's a joke about Channel 4.
ITV.
Is it ITV?
Yes, ITV.
Who cares?
Sorry, I haven't watched terrestrial television for a long time.
It was Big Brother.
It is, yeah, I know, I got that. Yeah, I thought it was.
Every channel gets a go at Big Brother.
I thought it was Britain's Got Talent.
ITV again.
What do you think about this, Lewis? Did you see this clip?
I didn't see the clip, but I mean, it's hard not to. I mean,
I don't want to say anything about the way.
Very insightful.
That's very insightful.
I'm not going to say. Here's the thing. Is that these are touchy times. People know what people are talking about, and it's so dangerous what's going on every side. People are like concerned.
Okay.
You know, so why shouldn't she be worried about it? But why should we be
It was a guy.
about it?
Okay, well, next up is this video with Kemi Badenoch being grilled on BBC Breakfast.
Have you watched Adolescence yet?
No, I haven't. I probably won't. It's a film on Netflix, and most of my time right now is spent visiting the country.
Why would you not want to know what people are talking about?
Well, I think that those are all important issues, and those were issues that I've been talking about for a long time. But in the same way that I don't need to watch Casualty to know what's going on in the NHS, I don't need to watch a specific Netflix drama to understand what's going on. It's a fictional series.
Adam. Have you seen Adolescence?
Now, I actually have, and yes, I have. I watched it. I actually watched the show. I enjoyed the show. I thought it was a good show. I think you can have two things. You can enjoy a separate fictional TV series, and then also believe it shouldn't be informing government policy. That's my take.
Fair enough. Lewis.
Whoa. Yeah.
Damn boy!
Yeah.
Finally, China has trolled President Trump, and it's pretty funny. Lewis, this is funny, right?
It's regarding the tariffs, isn't it?
I know what it is. Is it funny? It's funny that China has to make this video because they're in a full-on panic, and they were in a panic before the tariffs. China is on the way down. People don't even know that.
A lot of people actually say it's the opposite. The tariffs are benefiting China, but that's for
who's saying? No, they're not saying it's benefiting
I
China.
think the Chinese are saying it's benefiting.
Yeah,
the Chinese
but this shows a sense of humour from China.
It is funny. It is funny. I mean, we need to respond with another AI video of based on real life actions in Foxconn, where people were jumping off buildings and they had to install nets because it was cheaper than just to pay them properly. So,
wow, that took a dark turn for the end. Thanks, Adam.
Pretty funny.
Just go back to watching Adolescence. Anyway. So, that is it. Thank you so much for joining us for Free Speech Nation. Thank you to my panel, Adam Kumas and Lewis Schaefer, also to my brilliant guest this evening. If you want to join us live in the studio, be part of our wonderful audience, you can. Please go to www.sroaudiences.com. Stay tuned for the brilliant Ben Leo tonight. That's next. Don't forget Headliners every night, 11 p.m. And it's the late night paper preview show where comedians talk to you through the next day's top stories. Before we go, I would just like to wish everybody Hag Pesach Sameach. It's Passover. I'm going to be going home now to a very long meal and explain the meaning of Passover to my kids. So happy Passover to everyone and Easter when I see you guys next week. Have a wonderful week. Thank you so much for joining us.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. New working week really is going to be a changeable one. Certainly very different weather compared to what we have been used to. Most of us seeing some rain at times, but in between there will be some sunshine. And the reason why is really we're going to be dominated by areas of low pressure as we come through towards the Easter weekend. Back to the here and now as we end Sunday. Plenty of showers around initially, but for a lot of England and Wales, actually, it will turn drier and clearer overnight, with showers mainly focused across Scotland and Northern Ireland, although they will return across western parts of Wales and southwest England later on. But in the clearer skies further east, a chilly night to come. We could see a touch of frost in places. So Monday morning, it's going to be a bit of a mixed picture across Scotland. There will be plenty of showers around. There will also be some sunshine in places, and some of the showers will be of a wintry nature across the high ground. Quite a cloudy picture for Northern Ireland too, with some showers here, with maybe some more heavy and persistent rain developing across southwest Scotland, down into northwest England, Wales and southwest England. But elsewhere across England, a bright start to the day, although it will be a bit chilly. But the sunshine will quickly get to work, and it will feel fairly pleasant across East Anglia and the southeast and part of England as we go through the course of the day. But for the zone between eastern Scotland all the way down towards Wales and maybe parts of southwest England, it is going to be a bit of a miserable day in places with further outbreaks of rain, although towards the west, Northern Ireland and western Scotland, we will see some sunshine interspersed by the showers. As mentioned, pleasant in the south, we could see highs reaching 20 degrees. Looking towards Tuesday, a bit of a messy picture right across the board really. Areas of rain working their way northward. Some of this will be heavy in nature. Best of the brightest and driest weather probably across Northern Ireland and western Scotland. And that changeable picture continuing as we move towards the middle of the week. And for all of us, temperatures generally around average for April.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be driving away with this brand new Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps 4, comes with sky roof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
Because
the failure
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
If you want your news to be straight talk